Hello and welcome to UI Chat, the podcast where we discuss Ubiquiti, networking and much more. I'm your host Alex, and as always, I'm joined by Evan McCann. How are you doing, Evan? You alright?
Good. Yeah, no guest this month, and not a ton to get into, so this might be a shorter episode.
Yeah, it's been a quieter month than most. Most of the news we're going to discuss seemed to come all at once last week. So it's all quite all at once in terms of dealing with the news there. But yeah, pretty good. Some pretty good releases actually, new cameras and stuff. So we'll dig right in. Before we do get into those new releases, though, I just want to thank everyone who has been watching or listening to this podcast over the past few years. Please subscribe on YouTube or follow on your favourite podcast app so you don't miss a new episode.
Yeah, and just starting off, we had some follow-up from last time. We talked with Jim about the U7 audience, the stadium arena-sized AP, that it apparently has some differences in the UK. At least from what I can tell, it is released finally. And outdoor operation is only supported in the US and Canada. It looks like it's not weatherproof in the UK. Did you see the details in the store now that it's out?
Yeah, one of the guys at the UWC said that they had to make some compromises. We discussed it at length last month, but they said that the E7 audience, would have to be either not weatherproof or not have 6 gig, and the whole point of that thing is to be 6 gig, otherwise what's the point? So they've decided to make it not weatherproof, which makes sense for indoor stadiums and stuff, and like arenas and basketball arenas and that sort of thing. So I can't see the outdoor use of it being that common, so I guess it makes sense for them. So
yeah. And also from last time we had talked about UniFi Network 9.2. 9.2.87 went GA, and I think there was a bug fix release since then. But that was the WAN SLA and a couple other big features. DHCP Manager, that's now out. One thing we talked about, I think a few months ago, the UniFi Partner Program, that's mostly aimed at MSPs and resellers, and they provide support, training, and this is specifically about like people that resell UniFi hardware. Seems like more and more hardware is labeled with that in the store, so it's a pretty limited subset of devices. But like one of the new cameras that we're going to be talking about here shortly, that's part of it. So that list of hardware is growing, and they seem to be pushing that a bit more. And also, you notice that if you just go to, we mostly spend a lot of time on the store page going through all the different products and what's new, but it seems like the regular website was kind of has a design update, kind of matching the store redesign that was done a few months ago.
Yeah, and that kind of means that the the UISP sub website's been buried and not killed off, but just sort of completely buried. On the store, they've got that little drop down for it where it's actually behind. It's slightly smaller than the UniFi logo itself, but on the main website, I've spent a good few minutes trying to find it. There's no direct link to UIS. Yeah.
Well, do you remember when they first rolled out that store redesign? The same exact thing happened. They had the UniFi logo in the upper left.
Yep. And
there was no drop down to go to like Amplify or UISP. My assumption is like when you just go to UI.com, you have that same logo in the upper left. There's no drop down.
Yep.
Maybe they're rolling this out in phases, and UISP is phase 2. Maybe we'll see a drop down there soon. But yeah, it is kind of strange that there is UniFi is kind of taking over Ubiquiti as far as branding goes, so they're really, seeing UniFi in the upper left when you go to Ubiquiti's website is like,
I know,
strange. But I do wonder if they'll have that drop down and UISP will reappear.
And you can kind of see now why those people that aren't they haven't known Ubiquiti for as long as most people have, that they might just think the company's called UniFi. You would have no reason to not think that.
Right.
So it bugs me when people say, "Oh, UniFi launched this new thing." Well, technically, but I can. You can't really blame them. On that new site, there's a new. They've done a clever sitemap. So if you click on Start Here, and then sitemap and topology, they've taken the same design language from the UniFi Network application and shown you the topology in terms of how the network does that, and to tell you how the site's laid out. It's quite nice actually. So
yeah, I really like that, and I really like how UISP is nowhere in that tree currently.
No, but it does give you a nice little overview of all the stuff they've got going on. The UISP sub website is still there, by the way. It's on uisp.ui.com. That's the portal. It's on ui.com/UISP then. Yeah, UISP.com actually. And they've got a separate website which has got the UISP logo and a similar sort of design, but it hasn't been updated, so oh well.
Yeah, maybe next month.
Yeah, and they've updated their brand sort of core principles. So on the main website now, it's sort of highlighting that they're building the future of IT. It's license-free, industry-leading hardware, intuitive setup, sort of all these key bullet points about what they're trying to do, and they're sort of trying to show what Ubiquiti is about in terms of the advantages you get over Meraki or whatever. So quite cool.
Yeah, I really like it overall. It seems to be pretty nice. So
yeah.
First bit of new hardware to get into, though. This was at least a couple weeks ago. This is the Ethernet surge protection. Previously, there was kind of like a single port outdoor option for this. I typically ran into them when you would run Ethernet cabling outdoors for either an access point or some sort of point-to-point link, something where you need you're worried about like a lightning strike or any sort of ESD, electrostatic discharge, I believe is the term they use. So that would just be for grounding, primarily outdoor runs. This is now, they have indoor options for surge protection. So there's two different options here. There's a single port and a 24 port. The 24 port is like it looks like a full rack mount switch.
Yeah.
The single port, you can either just kind of clip it on or mount it to a DIN rail, but that would just be for a single cable run there. And this, both of these options, the 24 port and the single port, support up to 10 gigabit. So if you have 10 gigabit Ethernet runs, you can use this to make sure, any sort of surge on your Ethernet runs won't be an issue. Along with this, they do have a new outdoor model. So they have the existing one that's been out for years. I think it got slightly renamed or rebranded, but they do also have they separate the two models based on how much current they can handle. So there's a 10K and then a 20K option. So the new 20Ka kiloamp, that's similar to the indoor models where it'll support up to 10 gigabit operation. The lower end model is only rated for 2.5 gig. For PoE devices. So all those are now available except for, I believe, the 24 port indoor rack model is coming out in August, is what they say, for the US at least.
Yeah, pretty cool. I've the only time I've used one of those outdoor surge protectors is to extend an Ethernet cable in my solar panel installation. When I was feeding the cables through the conduit and stuff, I didn't quite make them long enough, so I just touched a few of those and job done.
Yeah. They should be in line. They can also be a cheeky way to extend a existing line if that's what you need.
Yep. No, quite cool. I did notice that the 10 kiloamp version is now 2.5, as you said. I think that was a gig at one point, so they've obviously changed that slightly. So that's quite nice.
And the part numbers are different between those two if you're looking at the outdoor ones. So if you look at like the SKU, if you have one that you bought a year or two ago, one of those, it might not match the SKU. I think it's G2, so maybe this is like the second generation.
Yep.
So that probably gigabit model, it seems like they don't sell anymore. They just have the new 2.5 gig option there.
Yeah, pretty nice. Yeah, I'd imagine these indoor versions are probably make a lot of sense for where you've got cameras on the outside of a building, or maybe access points that are slightly outside but not outside enough. These would help provide some sort of
or like protection in an overhang or right outside.
But,
yeah, very cool. And then the big new hardware of the month was the 3 new cameras.
Yeah. So these were announced roughly end of last week. Quite a surprise, actually. They came out of nowhere. Quite interestingly, Ubiquiti did reveal some new... they did talk about some new cameras at UWC a few months ago, but these were nowhere on the presentation at all. So no one really knew that these were coming. So yeah, quite cool. So we've got a new G6 Dome, a new form factor, G6 180, and then also a G6 Pro 360 as well. So the G6 Dome is a familiar sort of format, sort of external design. Looking at different dome cameras I've had before, this is more of a traditional dome camera. So the ball of the camera is much more extruded from the body of the camera there. It's all weatherproof. It's vandal proof. Like G6 cameras, it's fully 4K as well with that new 1/8 8 megapixel camera. It's got the same multi-tops AI engine as all the other new G6 cameras, and also long-range IR night vision as well. It's $279 in the US. It's available now. There's no speaker like in the G5 Dome, and it's got a microphone only. And again, like all of the G6 cameras, it supports the whole range of AI detection, such as face, license plate, animal, all those kinds of things. So it's quite advanced, and it, just judging from the external design, it hopefully won't have that weird reflection issue. It's got a much smaller dome around it, essentially. So that'll have to be revealed in testing. I'd imagine Clay will test that in depth, but just judging by the design of it, it might not have that issue again, which is a good thing. So,
was that the G5 Dome or the Dome Ultra? Which was the one that had the reflection?
Ooh, I think it was the G4 Dome.
Or G4 Dome, okay.
Yeah, the G5 Dome was a different kind of... this G6 Dome looks more like an AI Dome, to be fair. In terms of form factor, the AI Dome has a much larger body there. The G5 Dome, sorry, had that reflection issue. Is that one where the camera is a bit more offset from the body there? Looks like a nice sort of advancement to the lineup there. The other one is a very strange one. It's the G6 180. And you've put in the notes, it looks like a VR headset, which is exactly my first thought.
Yeah, because it has two separate lenses, two separate sensors, so it does kind of I think they call it a 16 megapixel panorama.
Yeah,
so it's almost like two 4K images side by side for a really wide view. I'm trying to imagine where. I always think like looking out to a parking lot, or like where would a really wide angle view be helpful. But it's unique hardware, and it seems really, really cool.
Yeah, I can see this. A lot of people have two. They have two bullet cameras facing a walkway or something long. And rather than installing two cameras on to work out where the overlap would be, this would make a lot of sense. There are some nice mounting options for it. Some flush mounts. There's a very similar attachment to what you get with the AI Pro, where you can add a speaker and a floodlight to it, and that'll improve its detection. But the very weird thing is with it is that because it's got two cameras, they downgrade it to 15 FPS, which we'd have to see what it looks like in reality. I think that's another one for Clay to test.
But I wonder.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the G6 Pro 360. I wonder if we're getting a G6 Pro 180 that'll upgrade you back to 30 FPS.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Either way, it might just be a downside of the so much resolution they can only support, with the current chipset or whatever. If you have double the resolution, you need to have half the frame rate, maybe.
Yeah, so looking at dual 4K sensors, it's 7680 by 2160, so that's crazy. And it will support the same face, license plate, and smart detections. And then, as you said, the last one we've got is the G6 Pro 360, which is basically a new version of the AI 360. So it's a much improved sensor. So you've got a 12 megapixel sensor now, smart IR as well, which improves the sort of the controllable zones you can use. Again, that resolution is 3504 by 3504, which you said is more pixels than 4K, which is and the weird thing is there's no face or license plate detections. Now, I've got an AI 360 here, and when I've looked at it, it does. I guess what's happening is when you look at that feed, it does skew things slightly. You have to go into the pan mode to look at things normally, and I'm guessing whenever it scans the feed, it can't quite read things properly if it is skewed slightly. So I'd imagine that's probably the limitation there.
I think just from the fisheye lens, the same way that the AI 360, it doesn't support license plate or facial detection. It'll do smart detections, like it'll do people detections, but it won't do facial recognition just because of how warped the image is. I guess.
Think so. Yeah. And again, there's some interesting mounting options for this as well, and they come in. All of these come in white and black, just like any other camera they've released now. So to mount the Ethernet port, it's kind of inside the camera. You have to take the whole front off to mount the Ethernet port. It's a bit different to what it used to be. So it looks like it makes it more weatherproof because it goes through a grommet at the back. But as you said, no pricing on these ones yet. They'll be available in Q3. which sounds further away than it actually is.
Right. Yeah, this fall. So
Yeah.
they don't have a month for us. And I'm curious to see what pricing is when these come out, because the AI 360 is, I think, $399 US pricing. So I'd assume north of that for both of these, especially the 180 that has 2 lenses.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be, a couple $100 there. But we don't have pricing or a date. Just stay tuned for those things.
The big release, which they did speak about at UWC, was Protect 6.0. And this is a massive release, and it's one of those releases where they having a brand new version number for it actually makes a lot of sense. Loads of new features. We got a new spotlight feature. So on the dashboard on UniFi Protect, you can add certain things like people, vehicles, or packages, or certain faces you want to detect all the time. It'll tell you when those things come up. I can imagine in a very, very dense deployment that would be very, very helpful, because trying to wade through hundreds of cameras is going to be a bit tricky. New triggers and alerts and Alarm Manager. Alarm Manager is really, really powerful, actually. I've been doing some testing with the G4 doorbell recently for a video, and I haven't really dived into a live Alarm Manager that much in the past, and it's very, very powerful. So some new triggers and actions in there for that. There's loads of stuff. I'm not going to mention everything. There's like a dwell time, so you can track something if it's been moving around, if it hasn't moved for a while, which is quite useful for vehicles or people or sort of thing. And one of the things they did talk about at UWC was the re-ID, or detection, re-identification, and segmentation with AI key. And you'll be able to take an object in UniFi Protect and recategorize its category if you need to. So if it is a person, I believe that's how it works anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice, because that's one thing I always wondered with the AI key is, like, how do you give it feedback? How does it, if it detects a dog and it's a cat, can you, like, tell it to correct that for next time?
Yep.
So it seems like that's what that feature's for. The only other thing I wanted to point out is they call it advanced encoding mode, which is the AV1 codec. I believe that's Google's develop. It's just kind of a more efficient H.265 replacement. So it's smaller video files, and it seems like that's only supported on the G6 cameras, but that is now in there.
From what I understand, AV1 does require certain chips.
Yeah.
So I think with
it's hardware.
Yeah. With the latest M chips and the Macs recently, they were saying that these support proper AV1 coding. So yeah, it's quite cool. And I did notice that as well. The labeling on the cameras where it says this is the camera name and the time. It's always been in the top left, and you can now move it around.
Yeah.
To where you want. So that's quite nice. Loads and loads of stuff. We're not going to mention everything here, but there's a lot of new advancements, and just have a play around with it if you've got UniFi Protect available to have a mess around with, because they have changed quite a lot, and it's quite nice. So
yeah, and along with that, they had Protect Camera 5.0.100. I wish they would have taken this opportunity to sync up the version numbers. Maybe that would have been too confusing to leap. But yeah, now we have Protect 6.0 and the camera firmware 5.0. Those are all the features that Protect 6.0 introduces. Some of them require the updated Protect firmware. One other small release here was Wave MLO 5 2.1. I just noticed this. They extend operation range up to 100 kilometers, which is what they show on the product page. That's 62 miles. So that's crazy. If you have a point-to-point link, 62 miles, you're going to need a huge dish, perfect aiming, clean spectrum. So that's very optimistic, but I thought that was cool that they were mentioning that. The only other thing is 2 EA releases. There wasn't a ton of other software that hit GA, but there are some upcoming software to take a look at. UniFi Network 9.2 just went GA, like we talked about at the start of the show and last month, but 9.3 is now in early access. The main thing for that seems to be, the focus of 9.3 seems to be about logging, which has been a big focus lately, but they have improved system logs and global search and filtering of those logs. So that's a really nice improvement. They have 100 new content filtering categories, and a long requested change has been CNAME DNS record support. That's finally in there. And improved ad blocking, which can be scheduled, and you now have a whitelist or a blacklist you can add domains to. So a ton of long promised, long wanted features in 9.3, and that there have been a few EA builds, but it's not in GA yet. Maybe next month.
and also UniFi Drive 3.0.8, which has support for multiple storage pools and multiple RAID groups in a storage pool as well. So some nice.
Yeah, and that was a leap, because I think the current GA version's 2.0, which is probably what you're running on yours. 3.0 is 3.0 seems to be a big leap. There's a bunch of other features, but that was the one that jumped out to me, was multiple RAID pools and multiple storage pools. So nice stuff for Drive.
Yeah. There's one final thing which I did literally was 16 minutes ago. UISP router and console 5.4.0 RC2. It adds support for quite big stuff, actually. It adds support for GRE tunnels and IPIP tunnels, or IPIP. Is that IPIP or IPIP? So adds support for those. Adds support for enhanced OSPF configuration. And also updates the bundled UISP application to version 2.4.206 and some other improvements. It's been quite a while since Ubiquiti launched anything for the UISP console, so it's nice to see something happening in that regard. So yeah, that's now out in EA.
Yeah, slowly crawling along.
Yeah, that was definitely a smaller month. I know you mentioned top of the show that there's less stuff to talk about, but that definitely was probably one of the smaller releases in terms of the podcast that we've seen for quite a while. So yeah, all good.
Yeah, it's Ubiquiti is no more. The company is now UniFi, and all they make is cameras, apparently. So
yeah.
maybe next month we'll have more networking hardware to discuss, but it seems like it was a pretty light month for that.
Yeah, taking a bit of a dip now we've got the summer in, so
yeah, everyone's on vacation.
So before we disappear on this shorter episode, what have we been working on since last time? So what have you had going on?
Still playing around with TP-Link. Yeah, I have. Speaking of vacations, I've been away, so not a ton of time to work on website stuff. But TP-Link is still something I'm playing around with, and some comparison chart updates in the background. What about you?
I don't know when I started the video, but I do find that whenever you film so I tested the G4 Doorbell Pro PoE, which came out a few years ago. So it finally came in stock, because it's been out of stock for ages, so I picked one up. I forgot how involved these type of videos are, so I usually film when I film the car reviews, you only film, you film the back, the front, the inside, drive it, and it's simpler in terms of a video, whereas when you're testing cameras, you've got to film the entire install process, which I only used a couple of minutes of, and then just setting the thing up and all that kind of thing. So it took a long time to film. So 20-minute video, and it probably took me a couple of days, really, in real time. I was quite impressed. I did get the feeling it's probably the wrong time to buy it, but
right. Everyone's clamoring for an updated model.
Yeah.
But yeah, it still seems like a nice product. It's definitely a bit older, but it's a doorbell. What else do you need?
I know. I've not had time. I've not had a chance to play around with any doorbells they've released, even the first one. So I was waiting for the PoE version, because in the UK, really, people don't have wired doorbells that often. We usually have wireless doorbells, so mine were battery powered beforehand. So I didn't want to bother with the Wi-Fi ones. I wanted a one that was PoE. Yeah, so in the video I tested it with the AI port, tested face detections, tested all the different kind of things. Yeah, really impressive. So yeah, that's out.
Nice.
That's out now on the host of our YouTube channel. That's where the Ubiquiti videos that I make go anyway. So yeah.
Right. And now you got a lot of good B-roll for when you do the AI or G6 doorbell review next year or whenever it comes out.
Literally this time next week. There'll be the AI
course.
Doorbell Pro.
As soon as we post this episode, that's new doorbell time.
Yeah. Yeah, always the way. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this month. You can find my website, theinterface.uk. You can find this podcast on all the various podcast platforms, including YouTube. And where can they find your content as well?
EvanMcCann.net.
Awesome. Thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you again next time.
See you. Everyone's on vacation.